All right, there we go. Well, hi Trevor. Thanks
Hi.
for joining me for a quick chat. Yeah, maybe to kick off, be great if you want to introduce yourself and your role.
Yeah, hi, Trevor. Trevor Hutton. I work at Endeavour Group and I work in the capability and team experience team as a learning partner.
Awesome, thank you. And I know just in some of our recent conversations, you've kind of mentioned different things you've been doing with AI. So I thought it might be interesting just to have a really quick chat and get some, I guess, real life examples that might be interesting, relevant for other, maybe for other learning designers, facilitators like myself, who I feel a bit like a Luddite, I guess, in this new technological wave. Seems a bit overwhelming. So I always like to start with some practical examples to help me as well. Yes, maybe you could just start by sharing with us a little bit. Yeah, how have you been using AI tools in your work recently?
Yeah, I think we all feel a bit beginner in all this space, Zoe. It's a big learning curve for all of us. But look, it's actually been awesome. Actually, I've had some very good experiences with it. But I've certainly learned some lessons along the way of how to use it well. And I heard a really interesting example the other day of someone that compared it to like digging for oil.
Hmm.
And you could dig down and find the oil, but then the oil on its own is just crude oil and it needs to be refined and go through processing to
Mhm.
get it to the point when it's suitable to put into your car. And I feel like when I do AI search, it's like that. You can't just
Mhm.
use what it delivers.
Mhm.
You got to put your own filters over it to get it ready.
Mhm.
So there's a human interaction with it, but what it provides for you and the structure it brings forward and the basic research it delivers gets you really on a great platform to start
Mhm.
molding for there. Always the hardest thing is to get the words down on blank paper,
Mhm.
where Google AI, I've been using Google Bard and some other, I used multiple platforms as well to try and
Mhm.
to test.
Mhm.
And yeah, you end up with this really nice platform to build from. Yeah, so that's very
Mhm.
helpful. And
Mhm.
mainly around the area I've been using it is, particularly at the currently looking at building capability frameworks for leadership
Mhm.
and using Sophia frameworks. And you can literally ask it to compare Sophia frameworks, for example, against executive leader, example, chief information officer, key capabilities and experiences for in that
Mhm.
role. And then you get
Mhm.
this beautiful response built against the Sophia framework, and it lists the capabilities. So it really gives you that good start platform. So things of that nature have been awesome,
Mhm.
as well as just general research. I've got preparing a presentation, and let's say around ambiguity. Um, I just will throw in a question. I really found the true secret to using AI well is the questions you ask it. It's that
Mhm.
I've learned to frame questions a certain way, and I get better responses.
Mhm.
And really it all falls down on whether that question's effective or not really. And
Mhm.
then yeah, it just will generate these really nice responses um
Mhm.
that work really well as well. And that really helps me very quickly to put together some quick research.
Mhm.
um and particularly structure, like it gives you a lot of good structure, like if you're looking to do a lesson plan or to do a presentation or put together a slide deck, it'll give you a structure as well. It'll
Mhm.
place it in a structure to apply. So
Mhm.
that's just
Mhm.
some quick top tips and examples, but happy to
Mhm.
respond to further questioning
Yeah,
here.
great. And curious, and again, this is a very beginner mindset question from me. So when you say AI search, how have you found that different from your regular Google or dare I say Bing search? How is it how is it different? How is it better in your experience?
Well, I've been using Google search for everything I do for a long time, and it's incredibly helpful. In essence, it's a form of an AI searching tool, um,
Mhm.
but it's not as tailored as AI. So AI
Mhm.
gives you a far more tailored response to your inquiry. where Google will just give you articles or refer you to websites and things like that, where you got to go and do your own research or get content or materials, where AI will generate the response. So it runs across and finds sources everywhere, and it stitches things together to give you kind of multi-resourced response, which is the power of it. So I found that that's a huge advantage you get with AI over just really, I'm rarely looking for articles anymore. That was my absolute base of research, is finding interesting articles, reading through. But certainly when I'm moving at speed, I just do an AI generated search now. Gives me what I need very quickly. But the only lacking of that, although probably if you ask it the questions to give it to you, is it doesn't give you the site references of the material that they drew upon.
Okay.
Yeah, to give you that response. So that's a bit of a gap. It'd be a nice build if they would automatically, or maybe if you asked it, it probably would, but you give site references of where it drew its resources from. Would be interesting. It'd be a good build.
Right. So then from what you said, the in terms of benefits that you're experiencing, you mentioned speed there, and particularly, you know, if you're kind of starting with a blank page and you want to do that kind of baseline research and have something to build on, right? From what you said, any other, would they be the main benefits, or what else have you?
I think it's that structure it provides for you. If you ask specifically around a particular, like if you're building, let's say a simple example, a lesson plan, it will literally put together a structured lesson plan. So in the old ways of working, which is so much more rapid and fast, in the old ways, I would have to research development planning and then go research my resource materials and then go resource how I would present it. So I'd have to go through multiple searches to go find articles, then read the multiple articles, and then bring out my kind of key points to go forward. With AI, it'll do the whole thing in one movement for you and give you those recommendations. It'll outline a lesson outline for you, provide the content within that, give you suggestions of how to present that, the questioning, even kind of breakout sessions you could run and so forth like that. So it's just like it's so fast and so instant, so quick, but also very structured. So that again speeds up your time and effort.
Yeah, great. And then you mentioned before, you know, there's still that, I love that analogy with the crude oil and the work that's got to be done after that initial searching. And obviously, I guess, you know, building on that analogy, right? I would imagine that the great questions or the good prompts are almost like having a good map that lets you know exactly where to strike for the oil, right?
Exactly.
And you mentioned that there's still that role or that importance of the human in the process. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? And yeah, the kind of, once you've done that initial, how where's that value come from?
Well, certainly, and that's what a lot of my reading have been about, how other businesses have been using AI. A lot of big companies now, like Walmart, are really invested into this type of technology. And a lot of the recommendations and shared thinking comes back about that, is that absolutely it's your intuition in your role, my role as a learning partner. I know my business really well. I know the context of the business. I'm very clear about what I'm trying to solve for and what I want to utilize that material for. So once all that information is generated through an AI search, it's my role to filter that and contextualize it. And then even, although it will generate languaging for you, but it's in tweaking that languaging to be a bit more in the context of the environment that you're delivering or speaking to or working in. So it truly does need that human interaction. However, I know that technologies are moving quickly in this space, and if you have your own generative AI that you own, it starts to remember. So it'll remember that what you ask and the languaging you're looking for and the way you contextualize information. So it learns. It's also a learning tool, so it'll learn rapidly and it'll provide you information more specifically to the filters that you placed over it in the past, which is, so it's generative AI and it's learning AI. So it's, it's got huge potential.
Mm, yeah, nice. And then I know that you work a lot with creativity and with innovation as well. And my limited understanding of AI is that it's drawing on sources that are already existing, right? And that I love that idea of stitching things together. Yeah, how have you been using it at all in terms of any of that more creative, innovative kind of work that you've been doing, or how do you see its role in those kind of situations?
Yeah, actually I have. So where generative AI is really good is you can literally have a brainstorming session with an AI robot. Is what
Okay,
I'm beginning to
tell
learn.
me more.
No, I actually use it as a, if I can't quickly go out and grab some people to pick your brain and get some different, you,
Hmm.
to be creative, it's like getting on different alternative views on things. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's very difficult in a short notice to bring people together. So I've used AI to generatively ask creative questions to
Hmm.
explore possibilities of different ways of seeing and doing. Now, of course, generative AI will not generate something that hasn't existed before or something completely new, but it'll
Hmm.
give you a different perspective of what's actually currently happening around that space
Hmm.
of where you're investigative creative. So it's very good in that early phase
Hmm.
of thinking about solving a creative problem by, as you know, in the first phase of solving a problem, it's understanding the landscape you're working in
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
know exactly what's happening in that space before you innovate into it. So that's where it's
Hmm.
incredibly useful. So it's
Hmm.
knowing at which point
Hmm.
to utilize it. But I've used it also to challenge my ideas. So
Hmm.
where I've kind of got something, I ask it to challenge me, and
Hmm.
it will. It'll. It
Hmm.
literally becomes that 10th person in the room that is a challenging personality that will just challenge you,
Hmm.
and I asked for it to do that, and it's great because it gives you this alternative view or that alternative view, and it just helps me to think of it differently. So if you use it well, it can be quite helpful.
Hmm.
Certainly in
Hmm.
that research phase, particularly. It's,
Hmm. Yeah. 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 Nice. And just a recap in terms of the act, because I know the Chat GPT is pretty much like the only AI tool that's kind of come across my my consciousness. What have been your kind of go-to platforms or
yeah,
tools?
Google Bard, which is
Mhm.
it's now changed its names. I can't remember what they've changed it to. Um, I'll tell you real quickly. Gemini, I think they call it
Gemini.
Gemini.
Uh-huh.
Is I found the most effective tool, maybe because of Google's search engine and database it runs off. It's huge.
Hmm.
And also dual AI is something we've been testing in the business.
Hmm.
But I have found that Google Bard and comparing that to ChatGPT is more superior. I've found
Okay.
I get with the other ones, I'll find it just doesn't respond to my questions. Says I need more information, or I can't respond to that for you. I need further details or whatever.
Mm.
Happened a lot more in the other programs I've used. I haven't used a lot of them, but I found with Google Bard, it would always generate a response for me.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
Nice.
and it was very sensitive to the way I formed the question. So if I slightly changed the question, it would give me some different information. Where I
Mm.
found the other programs, it would just generate the same stuff I saw before, even if I worded the question a bit differently. So it felt
Mhm.
it had a limited pool that was drawing upon.
Mm. Okay, interesting. And you said it's now become Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
great.
far, of what I played with, I found that the most
Mm.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And any final words of wisdom or learnings that you've had that you'd kind of pass on to other people in the learning design space, or kind of who want to get started and want to start exploring how they can use AI, become AI enhanced?
Yeah, I think it's the future. Particularly honestly, the future of our industry. I'm seeing a lot of content writers and you know even um, yeah, deck designers, graphic designers being challenged in this space because of what's coming in this new technology. So I would encourage all learning teams to really start to embrace this at speed because it's certainly sped up my expertise, and I've been able to respond to some fairly large projects so quickly.
Mm,
Just the other week, I was building some frameworks. It would have taken me 6 weeks with an external body to try and build, and I did it in a day.
mm,
So that kind of speed of which I
mm,
could get to things so quickly. So I
mhm,
do think yeah, my advice is to embrace with it, to
mm,
experiment with it. But the biggest advice I have, it's only as good as the question you ask,
mm,
and it can only be as effective as the filters you put over it yourself. So
mm,
it's kind of partnering with that technology.
mm,
But just a scary thought, quantum computers, they're on the horizon. They'll be coming at us in general mainstream pretty quickly. Mainly private companies, experimental companies, the military are moving into it. Quantum computers are 100 million times faster than our current
mm,
computer chip. So
mm,
if you imagine a computer that fast with generative AI,
mm,
brave new world. So
mm, mhm,
I think it's my advice is that we have to absolutely be the head of the curve in the game of
mm,
understanding this generative technology.
mm,
And particularly if we're learning, is that we can part that experience and learning onto other
mm,
areas as they start to experiment with it as well.
mm. Yeah, get on board.
Get on
Well,
board.
Trevor, it does knowing you, it doesn't surprise me at all that you're embracing this change and enjoying learning about new tools. So yeah, thanks so much for your time and sharing a bit of your experience with folks.
Pleasure. Thank you, Zoe.